Good morning, everyone. My name is Jenna. This is Flourish 365 with Jenna Campo. And I'm coming to you after about a 5-month time away from my channel. Not with the intention of letting it go, but just taking my time preparing what I felt would be most valuable to share next. And so today I just want to go over some of the resources that I have been diving into since basically the middle of last summer of 2024, and some of the things that I would call takeaways from that research so far. And I wanted to share with you a little of what's coming up in the next few weeks or month, I would say, that I'll be able to share more of later. The first things that I would like to say are that no matter when abuse has occurred, it can be yesterday or it can be 20 years ago. If you are a person who has unfortunately experienced abuse, it's always valuable to bring it up and share it with someone. And don't ever stop trying. There are going to be people who they want to be comfortable. And it's not that they are selfish. They just want to be comfortable, and it is too uncomfortable for them to receive the information or the story that you might have to share. There are some people who just, I think that they would want to come alongside you if they understood how. They're afraid of not knowing how to deal with it. And so when it comes up, their reaction, I think, is fear-based more than anything else. It's not necessarily a lack of compassion. They simply are not equipped, and they're afraid of that. And then there are some that they've been comfortable in their setting, whatever that church setting is, over the years, and they don't want anything to rock the boat. And so, yes, you are going to run into that. You probably already have, because it's very common. But don't let that ever make you feel like your story is not important and shouldn't be told. And even from the perspective of justice, yes, of course, we've all heard of the statute of limitations, and sometimes people are just not able to tell their story, or they haven't found someone that they trust that they can tell until after that statute of limitations has run out. And so there can be limits to, well, how is it dealt with legally then after it's brought up? But I don't want you to be intimidated by that either. I'm not prepared to do a whole video on that, but there are some really amazing things that can still come out of telling your story much beyond the statute of limitations. So please don't let that intimidate you or keep you from feeling that your story is still important to tell. So the next thing that I want to do is just show you some of the books that I've read over the last year that have been so helpful. If you haven't looked at my channel before, I've only done a couple of other videos so far, and frankly, at least one of them especially is pretty poor quality. But if you have not looked at my channel before, basically, I am on a personal mission. I know I can't do it by myself, but I'm on a personal mission to be a part of addressing especially abuse in the church setting, whatever denomination that might be, whatever faith you come from. I just am very aware because of conversations I've had for decades that abuse is obviously happening in the church. And so often people just don't know how to address it. They don't know how to deal with it when it comes up. And as I'm sure you've heard, there are just so many times, and we hear about them in the media, where something has happened, the church tries to deal with it in-house, and that is not effective because that is not the church's job. And I just want to put that out there very clearly. It is not the church's job to try to deal with cases of abuse in-house. And if you would like me to elaborate on any of the things I bring up today in future videos, put a comment down below and tell me what you think would be most valuable to delve into in more detail. That's definitely one of the things, though, I do intend to cover in the coming months is the reasons that it's not effective and often, frankly, not safe to try to deal with abuse situations that have occurred in-house only. All right, so enough of that for now. I want to just show you, let's see, I have 6 different books here that I'm going to just show you the cover, tell you a little bit about them and why I found them valuable. I'll be referring to another one also because one of these authors actually wrote 2 books, and they're just both excellent resources. I will say that at least in one case of these titles, there are chapters that I, even after all of my reading and delving into this, I probably will never read. And so if you choose to join me and others on this journey of trying to learn from past ways of dealing with abuse so that we can move forward in a more healthy and safe way in our congregations, you may be interested in some of these resources, but take care of yourself as you're reading and researching. And if you come upon material that is just, it's too triggering, it's just, you just have a gut sense that it is too much to take in at the moment or ever, that is completely understandable. And just take your time, learn at your own pace, ask lots of questions of people who are already working in this field. There is so much out there. There is so much hope. And so without further ado, I want to show you first. This is a book called This Little Light. It's by Krista Brown. She herself is a abuse survivor, clergy abuse survivor, and she's also happens to be an attorney. And so it's just a really interesting combination of life experience that she's had, just tragic, terrible, heinous abuse that she went through, and truly a miraculous story of surviving that, not without tremendous trauma, but she was able to survive that and find ways to address it decades later. And the ways that she has addressed it and made awareness and proper addressing of the issue a personal mission is just so inspiring. So again, This Little Light by Krista Brown. Now in this particular title, which I believe she wrote first, she delves more into, she had told people when she was a child what was going on, and they were people who swept it under the rug. And so it wasn't that she didn't tell anybody. She just did not have anyone who would help her, and so the abuse continued. And in this little light, she just shares what happened as an adult when she began to talk about it and address it in ways such as writing an op-ed in a major Texas newspaper and posting on I can't remember the name of the website right now, but she just did some public posts when she had gone through a lot of counseling and she was ready. She put it out there and really began to get some wind under her wings and find out that she wasn't alone, that there are countless others who have gone through very similar things so sadly. And many institutions and religious organizations have been covering it up. So anyway, this little light is a fascinating, more detailed account of what it was like legally once she started speaking publicly and putting pressure on a particular denominational body. She also wrote a book called Baptist Land that goes into more detail of her personal story and what she went through, and sort of a fascinating picture of her particular family of origin. And perhaps, it's a study on sometimes the weaknesses in a household that can make children more vulnerable or make them feel like they already don't have a voice even before abuse happens. So look for Krista Brown, This Little Light, and Baptist Land. Just very fascinating reads and countless lessons within her stories. The next one you might be familiar with. This is a book called What is a Girl Worth? It's by Rachel Denhollander. She was one of the individuals, key individuals who brought the Larry Nassar case to light. You may remember he was a doctor within the sports program at Michigan State University, and also, I believe, the key sports doctor for the USA gymnastics team. And so he had access to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of athletes and targeted, I believe, over 200 different young girl athletes. And so Rachel Denhollander, again, in What is a Girl Worth? She also happens to be an attorney now. And so had both the personal experience and the legal understanding to be a part of bringing him to trial and seeing him put away for the rest of his life so that he cannot harm another individual. Fascinating. Also, another study on, every person is different. I just want to clarify that every abuse victim and survivor is different in how they deal with that trauma. So if you choose to read Rachel's book, again, it's a study on not only what he did and how he did it and how he got away with it, sometimes in front of parents who were at those appointments, but Rachel also sheds light on what is it like in the, just the head games that a victim will sometimes play to their own harm because they just don't know what to do with this trauma. And I think it's valuable for those of us who, may or may not be abuse survivors ourselves. If we want to address the issue in churches and really fully understand it, we need to understand in a deeper way why so many people don't tell right away. it's an intriguing and important issue to understand better so that we can work with compassion and understanding with those who do come forward and have the courage to tell their story. The next one is probably the first one that it's not the first one that I read, but it's the first one whose author I came across, and really I have gleaned so much from this author. The Devil Inside by Jimmy Hinton. In that book, first of all, I just want to put a plug in for his YouTube channel. It's just called Jimmy Hinton, Jimmy Hinton, Hinton. He has a website called jimmyhinton.org that has his resources laid out, and some blogs that he did. The YouTube channel, also with just his name, Jimmy Hinton, is, I don't even think that, I mean, it's still up and you can watch everything that's on it, but he's not actively posting there anymore. But don't let that stop you. It is truly some of the most valuable information that I have found out there, and it just comes from a very unique perspective because Jimmy grew up in a home where his father was the pastor of their church, happened to be Church of Christ, and he grew up admiring his father and very much wanting to go into ministry himself, very inspired to do that. And shortly after, at some point, his father had left the pulpit. And not very long after that, Jimmy was asked to come and pastor that same congregation that he had grown up in. And I think within about a year after he became the pastor of that congregation, it came to light that his father had been a predator there among their church families for decades. Horrible, horrible, horrible. I just can't even imagine making such a discovery. But out of it, again, a miraculous level of courage and transparency. Jimmy and his mother, Clara, made it their mission to, first of all, educate themselves about how in the world could this be happening right under their noses. And, it's so common, as they have shared, it's so common for people to ask first when they hear about these stories, why? Why would anyone do that? And that's a valid question. But what they began to ask was how? How did this person pull this off? What was it that they knew how to do so skillfully that that on the surface people could not see it? And so out of that experience, they began to interview other experts, and they really became experts themselves on the amazing level of deceit that predators have honed in order to do the things that they do. And another particular subject that has stood out to me in their videos is the training that is now available, partly because of their efforts. There is some excellent, excellent training that not only, let's get past all we have to do is teach our children stranger danger. That is not enough. I promise you that is not enough. Something like 90% of abuse victims know their perpetrator. They're not a stranger. So we have to get past that and dive deeper. And Jimmy and Clara Hinton's work is definitely helping that. I can't believe they have as few views on their YouTube channel as they do. So please, please, please go and use that tremendous resource to get educated too. Again, his book is called The Devil Inside. which is it's not a long read at all. It's telling more of his story of how he chose to, even after his father went to prison, he chose to stay in touch with him for the specific purpose of asking him questions, asking, how did you do this? How did you pick your victims? How did you pull the wool over so many people's eyes? And again, it's something that we need to understand better. Obviously, none of these things are pleasant things to read, and that is a huge reason why I've been taking my time, and it has really caused me to. I have no doubt that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but it takes a lot of mental energy. It is wearing. And that reminds me, please pray for the people in law enforcement and forensics and other fields where they are having to deal with these issues every single day. I can't imagine the mental burden and emotional burden that is. It's important work. They have to be able to do these investigations. They have to be able to look at every nitty gritty detail of abuse cases. But they cannot do it without support and the prayers of people who know that they're at work doing these things. And it's a field that we don't see. It's kind of invisible. They're behind the scenes doing a lot of work with analyzing videos that have been confiscated or things like that you don't see the work that they're doing, but it's deep and horrendous, and they need at the very least our prayer support. So please don't forget that. Another book that this is probably the first one that I read, Securing Church Operations. It's 7 steps to kind of beefing up church security. Sarah McDougall is an individual. I can't remember if she's a psychologist or a psychiatrist. She's one or the other, and you can find her on YouTube as well. I came across her several years ago. She was one of the first people that I happened to see a video of hers where she was talking about basically a predatory wolf kind of person who had showed up at her church. And at this juncture in her life, she had enough education to realize that what she was seeing and hearing from this person was not at all safe. And so she has put out a couple of videos in particular several years ago, just talking about her experience and just talking about some things to look for. And one of the most important things I think is, when we come across someone who kind of puts the hair up on the back of our neck, we're so quick, I think, in our American culture especially, to just kind of, oh, come on now, calm down, give this person the benefit of the doubt. We're probably overreacting or misunderstanding something. And while that can happen, that gut feeling and that hair raising up on the back of your neck, those are God-given instincts that He's put in us that we need to give more credence to, I think. And, you don't want to be paranoid all the time, and you don't want to just constantly be thinking, oh, is this person a monster? That person's probably a monster too, and I just can't see it. That's not the way we want to be living our lives, but we do need to get back to listening to our gut instincts and taking the time to really listen and observe. and not ignore, the things that kind of give us a little bit of a check. There's a reason for that. So anyway, getting back to this book, Securing Church Operations. Because of Susan's work, I started to look first at what resources are out there about just looking at the way our denominations or our buildings or our line of authority, levels of elders, or just those different pieces that make a congregation or institution what it is, and what about those things makes us more vulnerable, and how we can adjust what happens in our buildings as well as what's happening in our do we have eyes on the ground? And I don't mean, like sometimes you'll go into, let's say you go into an office building, a large office building in a large city, and you'll see that they have some security officers. And I don't want to minimize what some of those people are doing, but many, 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 many people who are hired as security don't really have a lot of training. So for some of these things that can happen, they're really not trained to address them. So if you have what you call security in place in your church, for example, how well are they actually trained? Would they actually be effective if an abuse issue came to light? I think it's valuable to perhaps read this book. Simon Osmo, I think is how you pronounce the name. And I think it's a good start. And it's not a really long read, so I recommend that. This is a book by Gavin de Becker called The Gift of Fear. And basically, he is looking, the subtitle is Survival Signals That Protect Us from Violence. And again, getting back to what he did is he interviewed people who had gone through assaults of all different kinds. And he helped them look back in a healthy way, to recover from the trauma, but also come out of it with a sense of being empowered and able to better protect themselves in the future. Now, that gets to another thing, and I want to quickly make the point. If you have been assaulted, if you are already the victim of abuse, that was not your fault, okay? What you didn't know how to do at the time does not make you at fault for that assault. That is completely on the person who assaulted you. They are responsible. So I just want to clarify what I meant in talking about Gavin de Becker's book. Again, it's called The Gift of Fear. What he was able to do is sit down with different people and hear their story of what took place, and then help them recognize where were the cautions along the way before the assault even happened. What did they kind of bypass, like we'll so often do? Again, like I was saying earlier, it's a very natural human thing that when we're faced with a threat, our brain is just scrambling, trying to make sense of it. Well, sometimes things are happening that you can't make sense of because you're truly under attack. But the first thing that our body does, and our brain kind of goes into this survival mode of trying to make sense of what's going on. And in our effort to do that, sometimes we kind of dismiss something that we actually really need to address. So he helps the reader of his book look at these different actual cases that happened and be able to see, okay, at this point in the scenario, here was this clue that this person did not mean well. And, what could have been different at that point had the person being targeted understood. And so we have the benefit of hearing about those cases and learning from them with his analysis, just to help us be more prepared and watchful, and us be able to follow our gut more appropriately. Okay, the last book is called Predators. It's by Anna Salter. The subtitle is Pedophiles, Rapists, and Other Offenders, I will say. I want to make sure that this information stays up, and I don't know which words YouTube hones in on and can sometimes sweep to the side as a caution. But again, I'm just going to put that up there again. Anna Salter, Predators. She is one courageous, rock solid, unique individual. I don't know her whole story. I don't know that I've ever heard her explain how she got into this field, but she has become an expert on sex offenders and how they think, even after they're incarcerated. This is the book that I was referring to that has been a very slow read. It is not for everyone, I can assure you. And this is the one I was referring to when I said there are chapters that I probably will never read because they're just too much. But again, the reason she wrote it is the subtitle, which says who they are, how they operate, and how we can protect ourselves and our children. And this is what is so important. We can have in our head a certain picture, which may be at least partly effective, of how to protect our children and how to not be the next target. But there is some validity in realizing that part of that education needs to be a better understanding of how these people think in the first place, because they are not your average Joe on the street, I assure you. There is just a completely different view of everything around them, and we need to have a better understanding of that in order to just realize the deep reality of this and where it's springing up from. So anyway, those are the half dozen books plus Baptist Land that I was reading. Going back to Baptist Land for a moment, and This Little Light by Krista Brown, those are coming out of her experience in the world of the Baptist Church, the Southern Baptist Convention, some really fascinating understanding of the cover-ups within that institution. And they really do spill over to a lot of other church settings. And at this point, I've just realized that if you haven't been hearing anything in your denomination, don't be fooled into thinking that has not happened, is not happening. There is not a single religious denomination or institution that is immune. And so don't fool yourself into thinking that this subject is for somebody else. So let's get back to hope. I am going, in about a week and a half, I will be heading out to Arizona. I'm going to go to the Restore Conference. Julie Royce is a journalist and abuse witness survivor of sorts in the world of clergy abuse, and not only addressing clergy sexual abuse, but the types of, how do I put it? You know, different denominations have, they have different approaches to leadership, levels of leadership, who has authority over who. Is their board set up with family members of the clergy, or is it really truly spread out in a more objective and transparent manner? She looks a lot at all of that, and helps to bring different current cases to light. But what she's doing, along with many others who are part of this team and this journey, has established the Restore Conference. And it's an annual conference that brings together experts in dealing with survivors, with compassion, people being able to tell their stories in a safe place, a better understanding of perpetrators and how they operate, and how the church can grow and improve in effectively dealing with abuse when it does come to light. And I have just found that when I looked at her YouTube channel, which I believe is called the Roys Report, ROYS Report, you can look at the Restore Conference presentations from 2022, 2023. I think there might even be one that goes back further. I'm not sure. But anyway, it can give you a taste of the wealth of information and expertise that's available at that conference. And so I decided to go this year, glean everything I possibly can from talking to people, listening to those presentations, and I want to be able to bring those takeaways to you here, and hopefully also to my own congregation when the time is right and that can be organized. So that's what I wanted to share with you for now, and I will be back from that conference by February 9th. I'll be getting home really late that night. And then in the week following, I will do my best to start kind of going over the highlights of that. And so blessings to each of you. Don't give up wherever you are at. If this is something that is important to you, you're interested in telling your story. Another thing that I will be bringing up very soon, hopefully by the end of February. I am not a techie person at all, but I have found, hearing other people's testimonies, that the idea of setting up a sort of a database where people can tell their own stories in a very protected place, and use it as a place to perhaps bring some things to light, some patterns to light. I know that other people are doing work in that where they have developed databases. Krista Brown did that specifically with setting up a database where people could tell about perpetrators within the Baptist world and begin to see patterns of abuse that maybe people hadn't recognized before. Others have done that in other denominations. I'm continuing to explore the idea of developing one that's more leaning toward the Seventh Day Sabbath keeping community. That can be the Adventist world, Church of God Seventh Day, various Seventh Day Sabbath keeping groups, because I think there's a need there, that there's a gap there that I want to be a part of helping with. And So, yes, I'm going to be delving into this conference and breaking it down for you when I get back, looking at the possibility of developing a database, and if that's something that you are skilled in and that resonates with you and you want to be a part of helping to develop that, awesome, reach out to me. And then just continuing to move forward in helping to recognize abuse situations, deal with them effectively. I'll also be delving in further in the next few months to just, okay, when you've gone through these things, it has left a physical mark on your body. And I don't just mean, outward scars that people might be able to actually see from whatever you went through, but just this inner, your body is not the same. And so many people, I believe, have chronic, ongoing, even physical maladies that sprung up because of what they went through. And so I am fascinated by that, and I want to be a part of helping people find avenues of recovery and renewed vitality. So I know this has been long, but I wanted to share these things and let you know I have not fallen off the planet. I'm still here, and I'm still in it for the long haul. So blessings to each one of you. I hope you have a really good day, and I will see you again very soon.